What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Rod, the Tech God, and today it's going to be the next module. Now, in our last video, we kind of did an intro to routing, and then we did a static routing lab at the end. Well, today we're going to do an intro to dynamic routing, and we're going to have an Ospf lab at the end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight in. All right, so dynamic routing, okay? Dynamic routing automatically discovers and updates optimal paths between routers, allowing for real-time adjustments to network changes, okay? So it adapts to network topology changes, rerouting traffic to ensure connectivity during outages or congestion. Okay, it significantly reduces manual configuration, minimizing human errors and saving time in network management. It is essential for large, complex, and rapidly changing networks where static routing would be too rigid and error-prone. So using dynamic routing, routers can adapt to network changes, instantly updating routes without manual intervention. It's suitable for growing and complex networks, handling large numbers of routers and routes efficiently, okay? Dynamic routing automatically reroutes traffic in case of network failures, ensuring high availability and reliability, okay? There's less need for constant manual adjustments, reducing administrative workloads and errors, okay? So this is a little drawn out lab of a network that may involve dynamic routing. As you can see, it's a little more complex than the lab that we configured yesterday, the static routing lab, which only involved maybe 4 routers. Well, now we've got multiple paths for data to take here. So we'll see about configuring this later on in the video. All right, link state protocols. So how link state protocols work: routers build a complete map of the network, sharing only link status updates with all routers, okay? Quickly adapts to changes, ensuring efficient routing in large networks. It's ideal for complex networks as each router has a full network view, okay? Some examples are going to be Ospf, also known as Open Shortest Path First, but nobody calls it that, and ISIS, intermediate system to intermediate system. All right, so here on this slide, we've got different types of dynamic routing protocols. We've got Ospf, like I said in the last video, my personal favorite. It's going to be a link state protocol that uses a hierarchical structure, whoa, big word, and is widely used for enterprise networks, okay? We've got ISIS. It's going to be a link state protocol similar to Ospf, often used in service provider networks for scalability. We've got RIP, which no one really uses that, but a distance vector protocol that uses hop count as its metric, suitable for small networks. That's why no one really uses it, guys, you know. We've got EIGRP, a hybrid protocol developed by Cisco, combining features of distance vector and link state protocols for efficiency and fast convergence. And then we've got BGP. Okay, BGP is going to be a path vector protocol used for routing between different autonomous systems, interdomain routing, and is crucial for the internet. All right, now we've got the different symbols. You know, in the last video when we were dealing with static routes, connected routes, and local routes, every time we check the routing table, you could see a C, an L, and an S indicating each different type of route that we had. Same concept here for dynamic routing, okay? So Ospf is going to be represented by an O, BGP is going to be represented by a B, ISIS by an I, RIP by an R, and EIGRP by a D. Why? I don't know, man. All right. So we do have some default administrative distances. Naturally, we went over this in the last video, but connected and local routes are going to have an administrative distance of 0, static routes 1, EIGRP summary route 5, external BGP 20, internal EIGRP 90, IGRP 100, Ospf is going to be 110, ISIS is going to be 115, EIGRP is going to be 170, and IBGP is going to be 200. All right, and this is what a routing table would look like with Ospf in it. So as you can see, you've got your static routes here, your connected routes here, your local routes here, and your OSPF routes indicated by an O. So a little more into OSPF. OSPF is a link state routing protocol for IP networks. Okay, routers exchange link state info to create a network map using. Do you guys really want to see me try and pronounce this word? Dijkstra's. Yeah. Algorithm to find the shortest path. Okay. It organizes routers into areas for scalability and efficiency. Okay. Its benefits, it's got fast convergence and adaptable to changes, so it's ideal for large networks. Okay, OSPF has multiple states. Okay. It's got its downed state. Okay, so no hello packets are received from neighbors. It's got its init state. Hello packets, but no two-way communication yet. It's got its two-way state. Bidirectional communication established. Neighbor adjacency can begin. Its X-start state. Routers determine the design router and exchange sequence numbers. Its exchange state. Routers share link state information using database description packets. It's got its loading state. Routers request any missing LSAs to complete their link state database. And it's got its full state, the final state. Routers are fully synchronized with a complete OSPF database for the area. All right, we've got different OSPF packet types as well. We've got hello packets, used for neighbor discovery and maintaining neighbor relationships. DVD packets describes the router's link state information. Request packets used to request specific LSAs from neighbors. We've got LSA packets, acknowledges of receipt of LSAs, and then we've got LSU packets used to flood LSAs across the network. All right, that's a duplicate slide. All right, so these next slides start to go into process ID as well as area. All right. So in order to enable OSPF on a router, it does need a process ID. So the command that we use in the Cisco CLI is going to be set up like this. Okay, it's going to be the word network. It's going to have the IP. It's going to have a wildcard mask, which is essentially the opposite of a subnet mask. It's going to have the area as well. All right. And naturally, we do have the option to set a router ID as well. Okay. And we can just verify the configuration. We can do show IP OSPF and show IP OSPF neighbor. All right. So here is an example. Naturally, we'll go into global config. We'll do router OSPF 1. We can set the router ID. So here it'd be 1.1.1.1. We can define the networks in the area, and in order to do that, we just do network. We do the network address of the network that we're trying to reach. It's wildcard mask, right? So for example, what I mean when I say this is the opposite of a subnet mask, if this was a subnet mask, it'd be 255.255.255.0. But since it's a wildcard, like I said, we're doing the opposite, so it's 0.0.0.255, and then its area is going to be 0. All right, moving on to the next slide. All right, so OSPF area, okay? OSPF area allows you to segment the network into areas to optimize routing, okay? There's something called a backbone area. This is the core of OSPF. All the other areas connect to area 0. There are non-backbone areas as well. So they can be numbered areas, for example, area 1, area 2, that connect through area 0, used to organize and manage routes, okay? In order to configure an area, you use the network, the IP, so the network IP, the wildcard mask, the area, and the area ID to assign networks to specific areas for improved scalability and efficiency. All right, so as you can see, you can have your OSPF segmented into different areas. Router IDs are a unique identifier for each router in OSPF, typically represented as an IP address. Okay? They help identify routers in OSPF tables and distinguish between them during routing decisions. OSPF automatically selects the highest IP address on active interfaces or manually set with router IDs, which is recommended for clarity. Okay. The router ID doesn't change unless OSPF restarts, ensuring a consistent identifier during network operations. So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and hop in Packet Tracer and configure a small lab dealing with OSPF. Alright guys, so I went ahead and drilled a network topology very similar, if not exactly spot on, to the one in the slides. Went ahead and brought up all the ports as well and assigned them with IP addresses. Now we'll go ahead and configure OSPF. Let me see if I can get this to a decent size that way you guys can see it. Alright, we'll go ahead and get started. Alright, and before we do that, naturally you can see we've got the 10.0 network, the 20.0 network, the 30.0 network, 40's over here, and 50 is adjacent. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go into global config. From global config, we'll go ahead and run the command router ospf1. It's going to take us to a brand new mode, the config router mode. Here we're going to do network 2.168.10.0. So it's going to be the network address. We're going to do 0.0.0.255, the wildcard mask. Okay. Then we're going to do area 0. Everything in this lab is going to be in area 0. Okay. But that allows me to speak to this network right here. But what about my other networks? I'll have to go ahead and implement in routes for them as well. So if you watched my last video, you probably already seen some similarities between this and static routing. You know, you've got to make routes for where you want to go, right? Now, as you can see, we've got OSPF configured on one of my routers. We'll go ahead and go into simulation mode, press play. And as you can see, OSPF packets are being sent out. They're hello packets, but why are we getting an X right here? It's because we didn't configure OSPF anywhere else. OSPF has to be configured on all of our devices. Right, so we'll go ahead and do that now. And tell you what, we'll use the same logic that we use for static routing. That way we don't have to sit here and type out a bunch of routes. So we'll do router, OSPF1, and if you're wondering about the processing ID, it's gonna be 1. Alright. I'm gonna do network, and we'll go ahead and summarize it. So we'll do 192.168.0.0. That means anything starting with 192.168. It's going to have a route there. We've got to adjust the wildcard mask as well. We'll keep everything in area 0. And we'll go ahead and run this command on all of our routers. In effect, what we'll do, we'll just copy and paste it everywhere. Why? Because we're lazy, but we're also redundant. Alright, so do router OSPF1. We'll paste, get that in there. We'll do the same thing for all of these routers. So OSPF isn't really a super hard concept to understand. That's why it's one of my favorites when it comes to dynamic routing protocols. It's really kind of simple. This one appeared on my other monitor. I'll go ahead and drag it over. Yeah, it's really quite simple. I mean, open shortest path first. So data's gonna take just that, the open shortest path first. The name is what data's gonna do. So it doesn't get better than that, honestly. So we'll go config T router Ospf 1. And we'll paste here as well. Let's go ahead and go into simulation mode and take a look at what's going on. As you can see, we're having Ospf hello packets sent everywhere, and instead of X's, we're getting check marks. All right, so go ahead and give Ospf a little bit more time to load. All right, as you can see on this router, loading is done, which is solid. These Cisco routers do give you an update, which is nice. So we'll go ahead and do a show IP route, and as you can see, we've got Ospf routes to the 20, the 30, and the 50. We've got connected routes everywhere else, which is perfect. We'll go ahead and run it on a different router so we can take a look at what's going on here. Show IP route. All right, so same concept. All right, we've got connected routes where we need them. We've got Ospf routes where we need them as well. All right, so now we'll go ahead and ping, and we'll turn on simulation mode. And we'll go ahead and ping. Let's do 192.168. What's all the way at the end? 30.2. We'll go ahead and ping 30.2 and see what happens. I've got on simulation mode, so I have to manually click. As you can see, it goes from one router to the next router to the next, successfully reaching its destination, and then it starts making its way back to the source router. All right. Now we've got another ping packet. That one chose to take this route instead. Yeah, so that's another upside to Ospf. You know, it'll automatically or dynamically decide which route it should take. And we'll go ahead and put it back to real time. And as you can see, my pings are 100% successful. We'll go ahead and do another one. 50.2 pings successful. Yeah, so as you can see, this is a complete Ospf lab. Everything is in the same area. Ospf is pretty simple to configure, especially if you summarize the routes. You know, if you summarize the routes, it can be done in, depending on how many devices you have, in a matter of seconds. Honestly, it's quick, it's efficient. You know, it's what I feel is one of the best routing protocols out there. I feel it's one of the most used as well. It definitely is amazing. Yeah, but I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little lab on, you know, setting up Ospf and the video explaining dynamic routing. I'll go ahead and see you guys in the next one, and I think that one we're gonna talk about VLANs. Oh yeah, y'all aren't ready for that one, but it's Rod the Tech God. I'll go ahead and see y'all in the next one. Peace out.